Welcome to Meadowlarkers 78, a very special Bay Area Meadowlarkers. I would say a respite from all the Miami talk about the dreaded Florida Panthers and the dreaded Miami Heat and everything else down there. But, what can I say? Where are we right now? We are with Amin El Hassan. Kate Fagan is not with us today. She's out doing Kate Fagan things. We will have our honorary captains in just a second, but our guests today, we've got three Bay Area legends that will be joining us. We got Andy Dolich, and we are going to talk about Andy as former Oakland executive who can tell many, many, many stories about the early days of the transition from Charlie Finley to the Haas family. We're not going to talk about Andy and the Philadelphia 76ers because we don't mention that team these days in Boston.
Record breakers.
Because Joel Embiid is playing, and it looks like my Celtics are in a little bit of trouble. We've got the great Dave Newhouse, my former colleague at the Oakland Tribune, who took me all around South Beach, Miami for my first Super Bowl, 49ers Chargers, 1995, January. You don't remember that, do you, Dave?
Chuck Berry, I do remember that, Chuck Berry.
And on his second Meadowlarkers, we've got the great Ray Ratto, who is joining us from Alameda, California, I believe, wearing he's repping a Montreal Expos hoodie right now, which I'm a big fan of. I'm loving that.
It's a tribute to dead teams everywhere.
Dead teams everywhere. Dead teams everywhere.
David Sampson in here,
which I'm hoping is not a harbinger for this conversation, because the A's are not yet dead in Oakland, or are they?
Well, they're dead in Oakland, but we'll talk more.
We'll talk about that. Honorary captains for today for Meadowlarkers 78. We could go New England Patriots, Bruce Armstrong. We could do Anthony Munoz. We could do Leon Lett, but because this is an Oakland centric conversation, we have to go with number 78, Art Shell. And there's sort of no way around that.
I don't think
what's that, I mean?
I just sorry. I didn't know if my audio was going through or not.
Your audio is going through.
Right.
Honorary Captain Art Shell for today. The book is Goodbye Oakland, Winning Wanderlust in a Sports Town's Fight for Survival. It is written by Dave Newhouse and Andy Dolich. It is right over Andy's shoulder, if you can see it. When I had heard about this book coming out, I was a little wistful, and I'm maybe a little nostalgic as well, because I didn't really know what was in it, didn't know if it was going to be maybe a sports sort of business book about how the generations of ownerships have done the A's in and done and done sports in Oakland because of where we are right now. But it's not. It's actually sort of a very enjoyable story, sort of a paean to maybe the greatest sports town in the United States, clearly the greatest sports town in America based on its population. And it really is a terrific book. It's personal to me in a lot of ways, because I started my career out there as a Bostonian. I had never been west of Hershey, Pennsylvania when I moved to California, and got my first job with Bob Maynard's Oakland Tribune, over on 13th Street, 12th Street. And, at the old Tribune Tower, covered the Oakland Athletic League, first job covering high schools and everything. And so it's a really personal town for me. And it's really, really, when you think about Oakland and all the different ways you can talk about Oakland, let's just put it this way. I can't think of a town that's sort of been done in the way Oakland has been done in when you look at their history. But let's talk about the book. Let's go. I don't know which of our co-authors want to go first. Andy, I think you've got a better connection with us. So let's go first. Tell us a little bit about how this book came to be. What was the genesis of it, and the decision to write it?
Similar to you, and thank you for having us on. Much appreciated. essentially, I moved out here in 1980 when the Haas family bought the team from Charles O. Finley for $11.2 million. Okay, how many crappy second basemen in Major League Baseball now get paid more than 11.2 million a year? Ray's got
All of them.
all of them. I knew Ray would have a brilliant, pithy rejoinder. Most people said, in 79, the A's drew 326,000 people, hard to comprehend. Then Charlie goes, hey, Ricky, hey, Billy Martin, why don't you come back here to Berkeley? They go to 800,000. They had traded away all their players. Nobody cared, no broadcast, no marketing, no nothing. Similar to a circumstance that exists like right now.
A's drew 2,300 last night, I believe, or 2 nights ago.
And believe me, Howard, it was 1,300, but we'll get into that later. So having been involved and not being able to hold on to a job, having been involved with a number of teams, including the Warriors and the San Francisco 49ers and others, I said, nobody's really told this story. And Oakland has the highest level of self-inflicted low self-esteem as any city in the country, and it shouldn't. So when I first came out here, and hey, where'd you get this Lake Merritt? What is this Montclair Piedmont thing? What about the Paramount Theater, Jack London Square, water? Holy crap, this place is great, but it's got a national rep that isn't quite cool. It's the poor sister of San Francisco. So Dave Newhouse was writing away at the Oakland Trib, as you talked about, under the leadership of Bob Maynard and Nancy and many, many other quality writers. So I called Dave up and said, hey, Dave, shouldn't somebody tell this story about the greatness that started in the early 60s? And now we might be in a situation. My title for the book, Howard, was How Oakland Lost Its Balls. But the publisher did not go with that one. They didn't think that would sell, nor did Dave. Dave slapped me down pretty early. And that came to Goodbye Oakland. I turned to Dave 2.5 years ago, and Dave said, I'm involved in a bunch of other projects, but I'm in. And so Dave wrote 98.3% of the book. I wrote what was left. And we got to an actual real publisher, Triumph Books, that does a lot of sports books in Chicago. And they said, let us think about it. And then when the Vegas circumstances started appearing in cities around the country, that they may also be acquiring the vagabond A's, that's when the book went to press. And as I said to you, the book dropped on April 11th, and then it was 8 days later that Dave Cavell, the president of the A's, through John, said, we found it. We're great. It's wonderful. We have a binding agreement to buy land in Vegas, and we'll be playing our first game in 2027. That's the way to really get good tickets. And so that is a long, involved answer to your short, pithy question.
So, Dave, my question for you is: you've been here for a long time. When did you start at the Trib?
Howard, I started in 1964, but I grew up in Menlo Park, just south of San Francisco, and started watching sports in the 1940s. Yes, I'm 84 and a half, but that's a look back on how it all began. And I had a plethora of stories inside my head mostly about the inner doings of the Raiders, that there was no vehicle with which to write it. That phone call, and it was like unleashing a waterfall. I mean, it just, all this stuff in my head, I was now able to get it out on paper about a city that's as Andy said, it is the most victimized city in America. Not only to lose all of its franchises, but to lose one twice, the Raiders, while going through a kind of a massive, oh gosh, well, how would you say it? A facelift of its image of being San Francisco's ugly stepsister to a few years ago, starting to receive national awards for its progressive thinking and its upgraded look downtown. And while all this is happening, while Oakland is now kind of a pretty picture, the ugly part of it is it doesn't have any sports teams anymore, despite building a coliseum and arena and then renovating it, Howard, for both tenants, and they still both left.
Well, and not just for both. They renovated it for the Raiders. That was a really great ballpark. It was a great baseball ballpark. Then they came in '95 when the Raiders came back and turned it into a football stadium. Ray, let me throw this out at you. Here's where we are today. You were looking at a city that had a championship basketball team that moved back to San Francisco. You've got a baseball team that has been trying to leave essentially for the last at least 25 years in earnest. Like when I got on the beat at the San Jose Mercury, they were talking about Portland and then talking about Vegas and talking about Sacramento. There were so many other potential options. You're looking at a football team that came and then left again. The hockey team left a long time ago, the California Golden Seals. You wrote a column last week that was just terrific about the politics of where we are and about sort of this question of where the A's are right now. But Oakland right now seems to be saying, we'll be okay without you. We're good.
Oh, no, it's very much that. And the proof was the way that the city went out of its way not to engage in discussions with the National Football League when the Raiders were making noises about leaving. And that was, I want to say, 8 or 9 years ago now. They basically said, A, we don't have the money to give you to give you free land and then build you a stadium that you get all the profit from. And 2, we don't want to. And the gamble for the mayor at the time, Libby Schaaf, was, will the city revolt and throw her out of office? And it turned out over a process of several years, when the Raiders finally announced that they were getting ready to leave to go to Las Vegas, her electability numbers went up.
This is the legacy that we were talking about last week on the show, which is nobody wants to be the politician who let the Dodgers leave. Nobody wants to be and that has always been the hammer. That's always been the threat. You better give me the money that we want, make the public pay for it, or you're going to be the one. You're going to be the Bob Moses. You're going to be the one who let the Dodgers move to California. But today, from what you're saying, it sounds like that's going in the opposite direction. One of the things that we had made the analogy to was the Olympics. At some point, when you start doing the numbers in 2023, you realize maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you guys have overplayed your hand.
I'm sorry. The interesting thing, there was a documentary that came out probably a decade ago called Sonic Gate, and it's about why the Sonics left Seattle. And basically, it came down to when they built what was once called CenturyLink. I don't know the name of the stadium now. They put a hotel tax, and when they built Safeco or whatever the Mariners play, they put another tax on that. So when the Sonics came, when Howard Schultz said, "Well, everyone else got their buildings built using tax money, why are we not kind of do the same thing?" And the city of Seattle said, "We're losing business. The conventions and stuff weren't coming there anymore because it was so the taxes had raised the price level." And so they had the standoff. And much like what you just said, Howard, the Sonics left and everyone thought the city would revolt overnight and people would be upset. And it turns out, no, citizens actually want their tax money going to other things that are more important. And the whole sports team as the economic driver for a region or for a city was all bullshit that billionaires came up with because they want someone to pay their bills. And
I mean, you're in Arizona, and everybody who arrives in Phoenix, gets their rental car bill, and they see all the different taxes on it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ray. Finish your thought on that.
No, my thought was basically that, which is that there are some places like Oakland that have said, you know what, you might not think much of us, but we like ourselves just fine. And we're not going to give you $1.5 billion so that you can basically just make money off of us. We're not going to give you land. If you want to stay, stay. If you want to leave, leave. And that's sort of where the A's are right now, which is they keep waiting for the city to cave because their theory is we're the only sports team left in town. You have to deal with us. So the A's have been looking for leverage for quite literally about half a century, and they've never figured out how to get it. And now they're hoping that Las Vegas is going to come up with money to make them feel wanted. And I'm still not sure that Vegas is going to actually come through with that. So
And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
with-
right.
I'm with Ray. Ray, I don't want to step on your cool looking beard. So I'll let you finish and then I'll give you my take.
yeah, I mean, Oakland is not fashionable for billionaires, but none of the three teams that were ever in Oakland were really, sort of status symbols. I mean, the Raiders were originally supposed to play in Minnesota. And at the last minute, they got moved to Oakland by the American Football League because the NFL suddenly put a team in Minneapolis. So they sort of fell into football. They fell into baseball because Charlie Finley was losing his ass in Kansas City. And they fell into basketball because the Warriors basically had no permanent home. So they've always been the second choice of whatever team was in there. And with the single exception of the Haas family, who Andy worked for, they've never had an owner who felt any real kinship to the town. So they've sort of been fighting against the notion that their owners don't really want to be there. They'd
Yeah.
rather be somewhere else where they can make more money than they're making where they are. So it
Yeah.
wasn't really about allegiance or love of the teams or loyalty. It was about real estate. And
Yeah. Mhm.
that's how it boiled down. And that's how it boils down now.
Yeah,
And all you're missing, Howard, in this situation and many other sports examples that you give is teamwork, leadership, and trust. It sounds so simple, but in professional sports, that means the team owner, major business people in the community, elected officials, and those people back in commissioner headquarters. If they don't get together and really talk about a coherent strategy to keep a team or to move a team, that guy who had the coffee, business, he's made a few bucks in Seattle, right? So all he had to do is say, hey, let's raise the pumpkin spice latte macchiato by 20 cents. And he could have funded whatever the hell he wanted. But they leave Seattle and they go to OKC because energy guy goes, I got it, no problem. Here's my check. Howard, you can try to rip those people off in Seattle. They got other things to do. They got other sports teams. Warriors sell out 364 consecutive games. Joe Lacob and Peter Guber never sat with Jean Quan, the mayor at that time, because they knew Jean was in a quandary. She couldn't figure it out. So they go, we want to build a quality Taj Mahal in San Francisco, which they've done for concerts and ball. Boom, gone. Do we think that Mark Davis, one of the most incredible deep thinkers in all of sports, figured out how to move to Las Vegas? That was Roger Goodell. That was Jerry Jones. That was Robert Kraft. That was a lot of other people. We need to go to Vegas because that is perfect for 9 games and the Super Bowl and the draft and all that. And in Oakland, you've got a complete level of confusion. I would ask you this. Show me the picture of Sheng Tao, Libby Schaff before her, Rob Manfred, John Fisher, and whoever Oakland's #1 business leader is sitting in a room talking about the future of the Oakland A's. You will never find that picture.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a quick second. You've got a chapter in the book called Greatest Fans Anywhere and Most Abused. And one of the reasons I sort of gravitated toward that chapter was as a kid growing up in Boston, obviously, it was all about the Celtics. And even earlier, like when I was like 8 or 9 years old, when the Warriors, won the championship, and I was 7, 8 years old, I had no idea where Golden State was. I didn't know where they played. I mean, it wasn't until you would look, you read the Boston Globe and you would look at the dateline and it would say Oakland. Oh, that's where the Golden State Warriors play. And I was like, well, they were never the Oakland Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
And the word had always been that, well, because Frank Muley did not want the name Oakland on that basketball team. You know, one, to give him flexibility if they wanted to, because they're always looking for another place to go, and also because they were just ashamed of the city. One of the other points about this, Dave Newhouse, that I wanted to throw at you on this question was when I first got, when I was just doing backup stuff at the Trib, it was always this battle between the Coliseum Authority and the teams. And it was always, you know, the blame had always gone to the politicians. But isn't there something to be said as to what Andy just said? We all know if you want to be here or if you don't want to be here. And to Ray's point about always being sort of the second choice, was there ever a period that you can remember when you felt like there was the possibility that teams actually were like, yeah, this is our home? Because the fans, you know, the fans do show for these teams.
You know, Howard, Oakland got a late start as a major league city in 1960 with a minor league football team called the Raiders, which lost 19 straight games. But even with that late start, it produced 10 national championships, 4 by the A's, 4 by the Warriors, and 2 by the Raiders. Oakland did what it could. I mean, there's something about Oakland that is stigmatized. It never seems to get out from underneath this cloud of suspicion.
Yeah, from being too black.
It just never seems to be. Well, I'll tell you what, that is true. But Oakland, in terms of race relations, you've been to Boston, you know, has made more progress than a lot of other cities. It's the most dynamically diverse racial city in the country. Barbara Lee, the congresswoman, wrote the foreword for our book. Oakland is a very dynamic town that is very misrepresented. I truly believe. Did it do enough for its sports teams? Yeah, I think it did. It built a Coliseum complex. It renovated both. Owners that never put a dollar into the business side of Oakland, you know, never. I mean, they expected Oakland to do all the renovating of stadiums, and it just, there's a lot that's piled on Oakland. But if you look at Oakland, there's no city in the country that has better sports fans. It goes without saying that Oakland's fans sold out when the Warriors won one championship, in 8 years. They sold out after the Raiders came back from Los Angeles. I mean, Oakland likes being flailed at. I mean, how much more abuse can the city take, whether you're a sports fan or just the city itself? But you know what was really tough? Yes, there was the Oakland Raiders. Yes, there was the Oakland A's, but it was always the Golden State Warriors, because Franklin Muley the owner was a San Franciscan. They never had Oakland on their jersey. And when they went back to San Francisco for a game or two, they had Oakland on their jersey. And I thought to myself, how low can you go? Just how low can you drag yourself down? I thought it was humiliating more for the Warriors than it was for Oakland.
The point that I saw when I was here, not being a citizen of this community, not having a lot of anchors here, I said, Oakland's cool, it's gritty, and I viewed that as a positive, but we're part of Northern California. How about the new weather guy that comes on and goes, the temperature in San Rafael is 92 degrees, or the people go, Ray Ratto lives in Alameda, that's near San Obispo, I think. I mean, even people in the Bay Area don't visit other places, but it is a massive economic and sports engine. And all we did to really succeed at the A's early on was we broke through. We went north to Sacramento, south to Salinas, Monterey, and east to Vegas to start selling season tickets. We didn't just go within the confines of Oakland. And that gave us 6 million people to talk to. And of course, let's not forget the Giants were leaving. They were
Well, that's right.
in
And
a stadium that nobody wanted to be in.
yeah,
And then in the late 80s, when both teams were good and were here, hard to believe, guys, but we outdrew together the entire population of Northern California. And there were a few years in that time period that combined the A's and the Giants, not in the same year, outdrew New York, Chicago, and LA. And to me, that proved that the self-inflicted bullshit that John Fisher has been playing for 18 years is just that. And he wants net asset appreciation. And good luck. I don't know if he's quite there yet, that somebody's going to say, you bought it for 180. It's valued at 1.4 billion. Are you going to double it at 2.8 billion if you can build your doofus dome in Neonville?
yeah. Amin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask Andy, a big part of the business is corporate sponsorship money and sale of suites. One would think with the proximity to Silicon Valley that that's not a problem for Oakland sports team, right?
Well, it was a big problem, Andy. Wasn't that the big deal? Who was the biggest guy? It was Clorox, and then you had the biotech boom a little bit in Emeryville area, right?
Well, Ray, yeah, and you have Pixar, and as I said, everything is the Silicon Valley now. It's not just in San.
I mean, when the Haas family was there, wasn't Clorox the big corporate sponsor?
No, Ray knows this. Yes, they were a major player, but there was a gentleman named Cornell Meyer, and Cornell Meyer was the guy. If there were problems in sports or the community, Cornell Meyer, who is the CEO of Kaiser Aluminum and Chemical, the second largest company of its kind in the world, with the beautiful high-rise building, you went to Cornell, and not the university, but Cornell Meyer. And the reason that Walter Haas and the family bought the team is the world aluminum market tanked when Cornell and Kaiser were about to buy the team from Finley. And he said, Walter, I can't do it. I'm a publicly traded company. What about you guys? And Walter said, I'll have Roy Eisenhart, who's only a Renaissance man and one of the smartest guys that I know. We'll work on this. And hence they bought the team. Oakland doesn't have that leader today. All those companies have moved to other places. The elected officials haven't been able to coalesce a task force to do that. And that is, again, self-inflicted. And Fisher, who clearly has connections to large businesses, his deal is, I'm not talking, I'll have Dave or Lou Wolf before him talk about Cisco Field, a parking lot, a Peralta, Victory Court. And where are the A's playing today? 66th Avenue in Oakland, in front of, 2,700 people.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted.
Ray, you've been on this thing for as long as I can remember. And obviously you were, a leader in the entire blue ribbon part of the story with Bud Selig and all of that. And when you're looking at this sort of partnership, one thing that Andy and Dave both brought up is, does the league actually want you there? And when you're looking at all the different ways that team had been boxed into Oakland, whether we were looking at Fremont, Milpitas, if you're looking at Santa Clara, you're looking at San Jose, all the different ways, what is the relationship when you've been, deep into this? What does the league think of Oakland as a big league city? All of them, but especially Major League Baseball.
Specifically to Major League Baseball, they don't care one way or another. Their Major League Baseball's job, as it is transferred from Rob Manfred, is what's the owner want to do? Because when Lou Wolf, who was a co-partner with John Fisher about 10 years ago, was thumping the tub to move the A's to San Jose, he thought his ticket to ride was his college friendship with Bud Selig. And Bud Selig did not lift a finger to help Lou Wolf move then. And the Major League Baseball hasn't done anything since. Their view, just as it is in Tampa Bay, is that that's your problem. you guys figure it out. When Tampa wanted to do a split season with Montreal, Major League Baseball's owners gathered and said, we don't want you to do that. So basically, they're not that interested in a solution one way or another, as long as they don't have to do anything about it. And so, to answer your question, they're indifferent in the same way that the NFL was indifferent to Las Vegas. And in fact, the NFL, to a certain extent, was sort of hoping that Mark Davis could figure out a land deal in Oakland where the league could take control of the land and therefore the stadium, but Davis couldn't do that. So, long story short, the leagues don't care where teams are anymore, to at least at this level, because they're not making their money at the gate, and they're not making their money with fan loyalty. They're making their money with streaming and non-attendance sort of business operations.
But
The
Ray,
reason
wouldn't
why they
you
want
agree-
sta-
Ray,
the reason why
wouldn't
they
you
want
agree-
stadiums.
Wouldn't
Well,
you
the reason
agree,
why-
Ray, that the owners within that league, and I generally agree with your point, what they care about is net asset appreciation of their franchises in the cities in which they play. And if somebody else is going to increase their net asset value, in this case, Tampa and Oakland, great. If not, we got other crap to do.
But if they get a new stadium in Oakland, they won't mind if the A's stay.
Correct.
This is really about John Fisher wanting to leave because he doesn't have any leverage in Oakland, and he's trying to create some in Las Vegas in the same way that he tried to create leverage in San Jose and Fremont, which is just north of San Jose, and about 4 different places in Oakland, and he's never been able to. In fact, Charlie Finley, when they moved the A's to Oakland in 1968, they sold out on the first night. They drew 5,000 the next night. And by the end of the year, he was looking around at moving the team to Denver. So really,
Marvin Davis, you want to buy
That's
it?
right. Hey, I mean, go ahead.
There's never been a real groundswell by any owner of any team in the Bay Area to say, Oakland is where we're going to plant our flag.
Well,
Yeah.
that I
Looking for
would
the better
disagree
real
that
estate.
under the Haas family, that was our flag.
No. I was going to say the Haas family were the only exceptions.
And the Haas family were the only locals. I mean, go ahead.
That's led me to one of the questions I had after reading the book. The thing that stood out to me, understanding that most billionaires are evil assholes, Oakland seemed to attract a specific kind of evil asshole far above and beyond the regular garden variety evil asshole that other cities have. What was it about Oakland? What is it about Oakland that attracts these particularly toxic owners?
When Finley took the A's out of Kansas City and brought them to Oakland, I remember Missouri Senator Stuart Symington called Oakland the luckiest city since Hiroshima. Ooh,
Wow.
ouch. Well, that's how Finley was. What you're seeing in Oakland today is a replication of what Finley did 40 years ago, dismantling a World Series type franchise by getting rid of all the players, just like Fisher has done now with Matt Olson and John Donaldson and Marcus Semien, guys that are excelling in other places. There's nothing left to watch. I venture to ask any sports fan in any city, if their teams are dismantled, why would you pay money to go out to watch them when parking is $40, a hot dog's $10, and a beer is $12, and they're leaving? Like I said, the A's are Oakland's the only city to be victimized across the board than any other city in America. But if you don't build a stadium or an arena for these corporate carpetbaggers every 20 to 30 years, they want to leave and they hold you hostage. And that's what Fisher's done. And I want to make one more point. The untold story of what's going on now is where Fisher wants to build the ballpark at the Howard Terminal. And Howard, Brian, you remember the Oakland estuary you could swim across in 10 minutes. It's not that wide. Yet Oakland has the 6th largest shipping industry in the country. It stretches 84,000 miles to, stretches out to China, involves 84,000 jobs. It's 24/7. If that Howard Terminal Stadium juts out into that narrow estuary, you can't turn ships around in terms of bringing in and taking out cargo. Libby Schaaf never mentioned that. She went full board in favor of this. Why not? The A's left on her watch. The Raiders left on her watch. She has future political aspirations. And if that stadium wasn't, I'm saying the Warriors and the Raiders left on her watch, if that stadium wasn't built in time, what does that do to her future political aspirations? There's a lot of ugly sides to this story, but the ugliest side is that Oakland is horribly mistreated.
Hey, I want to switch gears for a quick second, Amin, and we'll go, but I just want to make one quick point before we do that. This is a merry-go-round, and it always has been. And I think that when you're looking at the old days, when Walter O'Malley took the Dodgers and then Horace Stoneham took the Giants out of New York, you had an entire country of places to go, especially in baseball, where you have to generate your revenue from the ballpark most because the revenue sharing, it's not 60-40 like the NFL. So suddenly you leave Montreal, and Montreal goes to Washington, and then Houston leaves the Oilers, and they go to the Oilers leave Houston and they go to Tennessee, and you've got this mishmash of teams moving around, and now suddenly Montreal is fashionable again. It's like, well, you left Montreal for a reason, just like you left Washington twice, to go to the Rangers and to go to Minnesota, and then Washington became fashionable. Don't we see this, guys, as only a matter of time when, one, you're running out of markets? There aren't that many places to go. How many other cities can you actually put a big league team? And because, to Andy's point, you are dealing with a massive, influential region. It's only a matter of time before somebody looks at Oakland and goes, that's the spot. And then Oakland comes back. Right. Go ahead.
The two best expansion cities, if the A's go to Nevada, are Mexico City and Oakland. If I'm a multi-billionaire, that's where I'm going.
Point of information right there. Back in the mid 2000s, when the A's were doing their blue ribbon thing and everyone was talking about, where is the next hot spot? There had been a proposal, and Ray, this, on the table. When Bob Dupay had some influence in baseball under Bud Selig, that they wanted to do a San Antonio Montreal hybrid. I'm not Montreal, San Antonio Monterey hybrid. How long is it going to take in probably in minutes before somebody turns back around and goes, Oakland, that's the untapped jewel of the country?
As soon as you look at the Coliseum, as soon as you understand that Mount Davis gets blown up, the Coliseum gets leveled, you could have already been playing in a wonderful ballpark at 66th Avenue with players that you traded away, the Mats and Marcus and your manager and others, starting to bring fans back because it's happened before. But John Fisher and Dave Kaval has said, Pete the Possum and the drainage issues make it untenable. That is total, absolute crapola. And $12 billion for a new urban ballpark city at Howard Terminal. I'm paying each one of you $1,000. We will sit behind home plate and enjoy the first game that the A's play at Howard Terminal, or the new stadium in 2027 in wherever they're going to play in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Ray, go ahead.
I think the takeaway here is that none of the things that we want to say about Oakland matter to any owners, which is why I don't think there's going to be a sports renaissance in Oakland. The first problem is Oakland is not going to move away from San Francisco anytime soon. And it's not that San Francisco can keep teams from going into Oakland. It's that there's no owner who wants to go in and split a market. There's a reason why Montreal is attractive. The only thing that there is, other than the Canadian Football League team, is the hockey team. And if you're going to put a baseball team in there, those two don't compete. Mexico City doesn't have any professional sports, at least North American professional sports, except for soccer. Las Vegas is going to be a difficult nut for the A's to make if they move there, because there are already two teams that are thriving there. The hockey team even more than the football team, and there's a pretty good likelihood, and Amin can verify this. There's a greater likelihood that the NBA is going to expand to Las Vegas before there's a baseball team there.
Bingo, correct, absolutely.
So the A's will be once again a fourth team in town. So it may be that they're going to have to find either some way to make peace with Oakland and just say, well, we're the only show in town, or they look at a place like Vancouver, which only has a hockey team.
My former market.
Which the Seattle Mariners would have absolutely no problem with, right? I mean,
oh no, they'll complain, but there are ways to indemnify.
Yeah.
You know,
as we saw
our good friend Dave Stewart and what he's creating in Nashville.
As we saw in Washington. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the crux of this is you need a facility. You need a facility and you don't want to pay for it. That's what it all comes down to. And so when you look at what happened in Memphis, where Andy, you were there, under was it Michael Heisley?
Correct.
What happened in Oklahoma City, where these were cities that were desperate for that validation that you talked about at the beginning, Howard. Desperate. We're like Chicago and LA. We have major league sports here. I don't know if that exists anymore. I don't know if there's another city in America that has that thirst of validation.
Well, isn't that the Olympic argument? Like, we don't want the Olympics after all.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's like a bad investment.
It used to be something that would raise the profile, but again, like I said, countless economic analyses have shown that it's all bunk. There is no boost. You don't fix any. The one thing you get is, I guess, better infrastructure in terms of whether it's public transportation or whatever that comes as a result of you wanting to impress the bidding committee for an Olympics. But in terms of a sports team, that's not a one thing we got to do in order to host this thing and then we're done. Now you're stuck with them. And, like Ray said earlier, not only are you stuck with them, you're paying for this building, you reap none of the benefits. They're like, thank you for that. We're going to keep all this money. So
well, that goes back to,
I don't know, but see, I think Salt Lake City is begging for a top class dressage center.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, no, the Olympics don't pay for themselves ever. And that goes back to 1976 when Montreal lost its ass hosting the Olympics. The real issue, though, is that baseball in particular does not have a lot of cities clamoring for it. Nashville has made it clear that when they expanded their minor league facility, they weren't interested in a pro team. They aren't interested in one now. They have a football team, and Memphis has the basketball team, and there's no interest in a hockey team.
Well, Nashville has a hockey team. Nashville has a hockey team.
Nashville does have I'm sorry.
And Memphis came about because FedEx, with 34,000 employees in the city, wanted to build a new arena and needed a pro team. And that's how we did our deal. And Michael Heisley spent about $8.14 to build the arena.
Yeah, I'm going to finish this with this, and then I want to do one round. Unfortunately, way too short a round, but as we just simply talk about valuations came out a couple of weeks ago. The Yankees were at 7.5 billion. I think the Red Sox were at 6, somewhere. You've got the Commanders at 6.5 or somewhere in there. And so the Milwaukee Bucks and Phoenix Suns were going for 4 billion. And so the dollar amounts are absolutely staggering in comparison to George Steinbrenner buying the Yankees for 10 million or Walter Haas buying the A's for 11 million a decade later. But I want to do just a quick round as well. This is also in Goodbye Oakland. This is also a love letter in a lot of ways to the talent of Oakland, to the people that come, from that city. One of the things I see you grabbing the Bash Brothers book there, Andy, and also
buy this book right now.
Ricky,
run out and buy this book.
Dave Newhouse, you've been covering this for a long time as well. The thing that always gets me about Oakland is the staggering amount of talent that comes from Oakland. And I think the thing that I really enjoy about this book, and maybe you can talk about the construction of it, is you dedicate individual chapters to some of the people who just came out of there and gave the city the flavor. We spend so much time talking about all the political issues that Oakland has and the stadium issues and being unloved and being second class, but they are first class when it comes to the actual talent and the accomplishments of the players that came out of that town.
The accomplishments of the players that come out of this town, Howard, top any city across the country.
Of any
Bill
population.
Russell was the greatest individual. Well, Bill Russell from Oakland was the greatest winner in professional sports with Olympics and college, like 14 championships, and then became the first black head coach in the NBA from Oakland. Frank Robinson, the first black manager in Major League Baseball from Oakland. The father of free agency, Kurt Flood, changed the whole financial
They weren't only from Oakland. They were from the same neighborhood. They lived within 8 blocks of each other.
East Oakland. You're right, Howard. Or West Oakland, I should
West
say.
Oakland.
West Oakland. But you think of the greatest base stealer of all time, Ricky Henderson, Joe Morgan, twice a National League MVP, Jackie Jensen, who was a great football player at Cal and became the first guy to play in a Rose Bowl, World Series, and All-Star game. It goes on and on through Marshawn Lynch and Damian Lillard and Gary Payton. Oakland is just cornered the market on the greatest athletes, but there just never seems to be enough about Oakland to convince others that it's a major league city. And in most regards, we top other cities in those important regards.
Andy, I wanted to finish off with you on this as well, because this is the game. This is and you've been on the business side of this for so long, but there's obviously just a deep passion for the game itself. It's not just dollars and cents with you. When you guys put the finishing touches on this book, and then they showed up in their boxes, and you got your finished copies, and you could hold it in your hand, what were your thoughts as we close out?
My thoughts were John Fisher's owned the team for 18 years. His new stadium is built nowhere, while in the same period of time, Levi's, Chase Center, PayPal. He also owns the soccer team, which nobody knows in MLS. Golden One Center in Sacramento, Allegiant Stadium, and the $5.5 billion SoFi Stadium in LA. John, show us the keys to your new building. You can't, because there is none. Now, they have a binding agreement for a piece of land in Las Vegas. Call me when heavy equipment is digging it up. I don't think there is going to be goodbye Oakland for the third ball, as I said. I think he'll realize, and this is a fantasy tale in our next book, that his Vegas deal, to Ray's earlier point, is not quite as brilliant as it seems to play 4 years in Aviators Ballpark. What is the Players Association going to do for that? Or continue playing at the Oakland Coliseum? Ray said he doesn't care. Other owners don't care. I'm not sure that drawing another 200 people or 2,300 people is going to work. I am hoping that Oakland fights for the right to keep the A's. Right now, no, they're just going, woe is us. Building a consortium of people that have some credence, that's what I'm interested in doing. And I think there's a possibility. It's a big hill to climb, but to lose all 3 teams, never to get them back again, that is a ultimate gut punch to the emotion and the last town square, meaning the Coliseum left in Oakland.
Yeah, to look at it this way, when we talked last week, it has always been my position, and I said it last week, I will say it again this week. You can call me a Marxist if you like, but I feel how I feel. If you are going to ask for public money, then you cannot take that team out unless you try to sell it back to local ownership. That team belongs to the public. And, in Oakland, you see it as much as any other. There have been so many other stories where, we talked about it last week, where the teams, disappeared under cover of night or moved to Atlanta without allowing Milwaukee to even bid on them. And Oakland is the latest in a story that doesn't always have the happiest of endings, but the memories are phenomenal. The book is called Goodbye Oakland, Winning Wanderlust in a Sports Town's Fight for Survival. For Ray Ratto, thank you so much for joining us. We've got Amin El-Hassan next week again, and then to our two authors, Dave Newhouse, Andy Dolich. Thank you.